status quo can be conversed in a more positive, and the regional corporations can be developed despite all these hiccups here and there. And mostly, what is the difficulties in development of the democracy, and why somewhere in some region the democracy is utterly failing. So I think this is very important, and this topic is of contemporary relevance. I will just, uh, I'm expecting to hear some very valuable suggestion, comment, and observations from the speakers. And with this, I hand over the this role to you again.
Yeah.
So you just carry on.
Thank you very much, sir. And we are expecting to know more about your experience and expertise in this area. And we will get back to you at the end of our talk. And let's start with our talk today. Okay. So I'm welcoming our first speaker, Professor Sahibzada Aurangzeb, Chairman Professor, Department of English, Literature and Linguistics, and the topic of his lecture will be Independence and Responsibility. Sir, it will be a 15 minutes talk. You can start.
Sohini,
Yeah.
hello Sohini. Professor Sahibzada facing some issues. He cannot able to join us presently. Our second speaker will be speak first.
Okay, no problem. So I'm welcoming again our beloved Professor Vibhuti ma'am. Ma'am, are you there? Her topic is Values of Freedom, a Legacy of Women's Right Movement in India.
So, good afternoon, friends. First of all, I would like to express my heartfelt thanks to Dr. Arijit Chakrabory for this opportunity. I meet Honorable Justice Subhasis Talapatra, today's chairperson, for the session, Ms. Sohini Patta, my co-panelists, Professor Sahibzada Aurangzeb and Dr. Hashibur Rahman from Bangladesh. This is a very important occasion, and the topic for today's deliberation, as I think Honorable Justice Subhasis told us, that this is extremely important in today's geopolitical situation and the turmoil that we see in the subcontinent. It's very important to have some very important dialogues on this issue, and I have chosen the topic of women's rights movement, how it has contributed to the dialogue and transnational solidarity, and also a very meaningful support to each other for the women's question over last 50 years, and also the legacy that we all have. Is my PPT visible? Hello?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
So,
it can be seen.
Yeah. Yes. So, can I go for a full?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. So, the values of freedom, a legacy of women's rights movement in India. I'm really pleased to present before you my views. We in the women's movement always say personal is political. So my grandmother, Maniben Amin, who was my role model, and she was a freedom fighter. She did, after the independence, she dedicated her life for building young generation through her educational endeavor. We know that all the women freedom fighters, some of them went into the education field, some went for bureaucracy and governance, some joined active politics, and some also worked in the foreign services. And there were many who also formed the institutions. As these four pictures show that how the role of women in shaping the nation. First of all, after Jallianwala Bagh massacre, for the first time, women on a massive scale came out against British rule. In 1942, we had a Quit India movement in which thousands of women, they quoted arrest. And in the post-independence period, we had a massive nationwide women's agitation for justice to Mathura, a 14-year-old tribal girl who was raped in the police station by the uniformed policeman. And the judgment which the Supreme Court gave was extremely objectionable and misogynist. And the fourth photograph, which is colored photograph, which shows the candlelight vigil for days together, the young boys and girls in our country in the scorching cold, in the extreme cold of uh, winter in December, they had candlelight vigil through for the justice to Nirbhaya. Now, I would like to say that all of us are proud Indians, and when we hear the stories and heroic struggle to get out of the shackles of the colonial rule, we remember our great and brave leaders who made great sacrifices. The first war of independence, what British called a mutiny, we call it War of Independence, in 1857, where to attain independence to like 1947. In this whole period, we saw so many women who dedicated their life and their outstanding contribution of patriotic and courage and patriotism that always guides us. They act as a guiding light. All these women actively participated in rallies and picketing and public meeting. They led processions, gave lectures, they wrote in newspapers, they addressed demonstrations, they spoke in the underground radio, and they courted arrest and they went into prison. And their selfless hard work and patriotic duties and personal sacrifices and struggles are now also awe-inspiring. There are hundreds of young women, young researchers who are now trying uh, to bring these women who were hidden from history. They are trying to bring them to the limelight, and so many after 75 years of independence, Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav, we have seen increase in interest of the scholars in these women who are going through archival material to construct their contribution for shaping of the country. So this discussion on Indian movement of independence, that is without say mainstreaming the significant contribution of women freedom fighters, I think that would remain very, very inadequate, and that's why it is very important to understand how persons like Jhansi Ki Rani, Jhalkari Bai, or Rani Tarabai, Razia Bai, Rani Jindal, Rani Jindan Kaur, or Tapasvi Maharani, Chennamma in Kittur, Rani Begum, Hazrat Mahal, all of them had played a pivotal role in freedom in the in 1857 first war of freedom. We saw that in the 19th century, it was Savitri Bai Phule, Fatima Sheikh, Tarabai Shinde, Pandita Ramabai, who pioneered the women's education. They fought against very anti women customs and traditions such as female infanticide, child marriages, caste-based oppression, deplorable condition of widows, superstition. And they had to face tremendous social ostracization from the conservative forces. We have an example of Ratmabai Save, who challenged her child marriage, and the conservative forces demanded her imprisonment. And Ratmabai wrote an open letter to Viceroy of India, which was published in the front page of Times of India. And she says she was ready to be in the prison, but she could not cohabit with a person who was of no stature or who was not unfit to be her husband. And there was a big polarization of public opinion. We had a big debate on age of consent, and Ratmabai she was not imprisoned, but there was a lot of support from the social reformers, and she dedicated her life. She became a doctor. She played a pivotal role in establishment of Surat Civil Hospital. King of Kolhapur, who was also very progressive, Chhatrapati Shahu Maharaj, invited her to be the chief medical officer of Kolhapur state. There also she created the institutional structures for public health, and then later on she went to the King of Rajkot, invited her to start a civil hospital in Gujarat, Bombay Presidency.
Ma'am, excuse me, ma'am.
Yeah.
Ma'am, these slides are not moving.
Oh my God.
Yeah,
Acha, so there is a problem of bandwidth. Okay.
yeah, yeah.
So now is it moving?
Yes,
Is it
ma'am.
moving?
It's yeah, we
Okay.
can
So this
see.
is my first slide. Second is Jhansi
Mm.
Rani. Third is social reformers. Fourth one is the women freedom fighters roles. Then we come to Sarojini Naidu, who was named as a Nightingale of India. She was the first woman to become the president of Congress. She was so brave that when in Dandi march, when Gandhiji told women satyagrahis not to join, because every time British police wanted to humiliate satyagrahis, they would pull women's sari, pallu, and that is supposed to be very insulting and derogatory in our culture. So Gandhiji says, why do you want to expose yourself? Sarojini Naidu says that if they pull our pallu, shame on them. Why should we be ashamed? And then we saw that so all satyagrahis they would always put pin. You can see even in this picture, Sarojini Naidu has a pin on her pallu, no, symbolizing the honor of women. We have also seen that during 19th century and early 20th century, women they took special effort. Some social reformers to improve condition of women. They were Tarabai Shinde, Savitribai Phule, Pandita Ramabai, Begum Rokeya Sakhawat Hussain, Iravati Karve, Kasturba Gandhi, Sarojini Naidu, Kadambini Ganguly, Swarna Kumari Devi, Ramabai Ranade, Jhansi Ki Rani, and Chandramukhi Bose, and also Usha Mehta, who ran the underground radio. So that is why we see that these women freedom fighters, all of them were highly committed. They had very articulate. They were excellent public speakers. They were highly educated. They were very indulged in a public discourse. And even we saw Kasturba Gandhi. She also played a very important, and she showed her courage of conviction, supported all the efforts of the freedom movement, and silently she looked after all the institutions that were created by the freedom fighters. Here I would like to talk about the Sultana's dream. People from Bangladesh must be knowing she's a renowned, she's a legendary writer activist who wrote Sultana's dream, and she gave a utopia that if what kind of new world that we need, where women don't have to fear, they have total freedom. There is no gender-based violence, there is no discrimination. And Sultana's dream has been translated, though originally written in Bengali, it is translated into several Indian and foreign languages. And this was the first feminist utopia. Even the utopia from the Mary Wollstonecraft and all came much later. And this was the first feminist utopia which the world got. We had Ratmabai Save's life is also very legendary, and she also contributed greatly to the age of consent debate in 1891. And we had a person like Bhima Bai Holkar or Rani Lakshmi Bai of Jhansi, or Madam Kama or Anne Besant. All of them, they had a power of pen, they had a power of their persona, and they brought in so many reforms within their society, and they played an important role in establishing schools, educational institutions, vocational training center, providing support, institutional support to women in social distress. We also saw that they also were politically very active. They led all the important events of the freedom movement. Massive participation of women happened in response to humiliation, discrimination, subjugation, and violation of dignity in a day-to-day life, which whether it was in Jallianwala Bagh massacre or at the time of Asahkar Andolan, civil disobedience movement, Dandi March, and Quit India. This thing, this particular certificate also shows that even to sit in front of British officer or sit on a chair, you need a certificate. So imagine the level of discrimination and subjugation that the native population faced by the hands of these foreign bureaucrats. We have an example. Oh, Professor Usha Mehta, who ran the monkey.
Yes, ma'am. I'm continuing.
Madam, please unmute
Ma'am, you
yourself.
are on mute. Yes, ma'am.
Hello, madam.
Ma'am, please unmute yourself. Ma'am,
I would
can you
request
hear
all
us?
the
Oh, yeah.
participants to keep
Ah,
their sound mute when someone is speaking, because otherwise there will be difficulty.
yeah. Then we come. We have a Captain Lakshmi Bai Sehgal who joined Subhash Chandra Bose's army, and she always said that freedom comes in three forms. First, it's a political emancipation from the conqueror. Second is the economic emancipation, and third is the social emancipation. The women have to fight on all three fronts. Unless you have all these three kind of freedoms, you can never be effective. And she, even in the post-independence period, she dedicated her life for the women's assertion of women's rights. Here, I would like to talk about the role that after in 1935 Karachi Congress, Malala, as a young student, a youth of India, gave a visionary speech about the dream of independent India and how the Indian economy would flourish. Women freedom fighters, what will be the role of women in planned economy? And the three-member committee was formed: Rani Lakshmi Bai Rajwade, Srimati Mridula Sarabhai, and Mrs. Purvi Subhash. They came up with a document on women's role in planned economy 1940. It can be freely downloaded from the archives. We also had a very painful experience. Both Pakistan, India, all three countries had a very painful experience of partition and repatriation of women and children who were separated from their homes in the refugee and who were in the refugee camp. And some of the women like Pushpa Ben Mehta or Kamla Ben Patel. Kamla Ben Patel also wrote her biography called The Uprooted. All the experiences of partition and what women and children went through, that was captured in that. It is also translated in several languages, including in English. And we also had a Mridula Sarabhai. These women played the heroic role. They had no other support system in the refugee camp except for the mic and All India Radio, what is Akashvani, by which they were making continuous announcement of refugees and their relatives. And there are so many novels and short stories written by Kishan Chand and Yashpalji and Sadat Hassan Manto about the pain of these women in the border between India and Pakistan, in the Kashmir Valley, and between India and East Pakistan, now it is Bangladesh. We have also, after the independence, when India sent its representatives to the UNSC, United Nations Security Council, and UNGA, United Nations General Assembly, Dr. Hansa Mehta and Kapila Ben Khandwala, when the Universal Declaration of Man was presented, these brave women got up and they said, what kind of declaration you are talking of? Both the world wars have devastated women and children the most. When men were at the front, women were running the economy and society. And in this declaration, you are only talking about men. And as a in response, a special committee was formed, and the whole Universal Declaration of Man was reviewed, and what we have now is a Universal Declaration of Human Rights, 1948. So these women were rooted in the local reality. They played pivotal role in the national freedom movement, and they were also very, very vocal, alert, and articulate on the international global issues. Now, in after the independence, when the Constitution of India was getting prepared, 15 women were inducted in the Constituent Assembly. Currently, there are more than three books are already there about these women. They can also be easily accessible, and there is lot of research going on. Individual women of all these women were active in the freedom movement. They were fearless. They were secular humanists. They were very, very brave in their personal life. Any of the seductive proposals or allure which British government tried, they did not relent to it. And they were Abu Swaminathan, Begum Aizaz Rasool, Dakshayani Vilayuddin, Durga Bai Deshmukh, Hansa Ben Jivraj Mehta, Kamal Chowdhury, Leela Roy, Malti Chaudhary, Purnima Banerjee, Rajkumari Amrit Kaur, Renuka Ray, Sarojini Naidu, Suchita Kriplani, Vijayalakshmi Pandit, Annie Maskaranas. Now, all these women are, as you can see, they are from different socio-economic, cultural, and religious background. Dakshayani Velayuthan came from the Pulaya community where the women were not even allowed to cover their chest. So all of them were first social reformer and then freedom fighter, and they also took the message of women's rights, women's dignity, and equality. And they had a power of pen, power of persuasion, power of creativity, power of legal acumen, power of education, power of public speaking, power of knowledge, power of self-discipline, power of courage, and they had a lung and tongue power. So these are the women who have been generally largely in the history books. You don't see them mentioned, and they played a pivotal role both in fundamental rights and directive principles. They work shoulder to shoulder with the chairperson of the Constitution of India and father of Constitution, Dr. B.R. Ambedkar, and Article 14, 15, 16, and also the 73rd and 74th Amendment we got in 1994. These are all the legacies which the women's movement has continued. Now I come to my own grandmother who shaped my persona and who shaped hundreds of people for the nation building. And she was a young widow. She did not shave her head. She did not refuse to wear the very depressing clothes which widows are supposed to wear. So in a personal life, she was very socially enlightened. She had to pay the price in terms of she did not get all the property was taken away by the in-laws, and she became my role model. And at the age of 15, when I joined the public life, she could understand that why it is important, no. And she always gave the mantra, and Gandhiji's mantra of pasine ki kamai, sweat labor, that was her mantra. And she believed in simple living and high thinking. And I'm sure many of you would have such grandmothers and grandfathers who are like that. So we salute women freedom fighters who had head and heart, as well as power, various types of power of knowledge and pen, and they were fearless. They fought for freedom of our nation and also fought against anti-women practices, promoted women's rights, and built institutions, because people can come and go, but institutions remain. So that's very important. They were educated and had a ground level experience in socio-cultural, economic, political, and legal arena. They were intellectually endowed, critically conscious, guided by courage of conviction of nation building, and they were responsive to varied life worlds of women. Though some of them came from the middle class or upper class or noble or aristocracy, but they were sensitive and responsive to the whole barriers which the women faced due to caste, class, ethnicity, religion, language, region, and they believed in working for the nation building. So we salute their patriotism and gender sensitivity, and this legacy has been continued by the women's movement over last 50 years with the feminist activism, contemporary concerns, as Justice uh, Honorable Justice uh, told us about the contemporary concerns, where we see that the turmoil in South Asia, turmoil in the world, which has made women's movement to focus on women, peace, and security agenda, and which was adopted because of the efforts of the women's movement, global women's movement, in the United Nations General Assembly in the year 2000. Even the SDG, Sustainable Development Goal 16, also talks about promote peaceful and inclusive societies for sustainable development, provide access to justice for all, and build effective, accountable, inclusive institutions at all levels. And the grassroots women's involvement in peacemaking, peace building, peacekeeping brings a broader understanding of security. It is not only national security, we are talking about national security along with human security. Madam Sushma Swaraj, she was so conscious about, because she's so many people who were into misery, or who suffered because they crossed the border. She provided the humane solution, focusing on community needs, social justice, and equity. A peace building approach that prioritizes inclusivity of all stakeholders and recognizes diverse voices, especially those of women and intersectionally marginalized groups, that create sustainable peace by addressing needs and experiences of all individuals affected by the conflict. So, within the domestic arena, also we need series of legal reforms, whether it is about family law or criminal law or gender-based violence or about trafficking, because trafficking is cross-country trafficking was addressed for the first time during the SARC decade of girl child in the from 1990 to 2000. So the collaboration, regional collaboration, becomes very important to fight against whether it is a mafia power, muscle power, power of arms, illegal arms trade, power of illegal drug trafficking, power of illegal of human trafficking. For all that, we need collaborative efforts in the subcontinent. Peace begins from home has been the slogan of women. When the world leaders were talking about world peace in 1975, when the International Women's Year, the response of the women's movement was that peace begins from home, and world peace is the only hope for today's chaotic world marked by jingoism. And here I would like to end with a quotation from the Nagasaki Peace Declaration that was adopted just last week on 9th of August by the General Conference of Mayors for Peace, in the meeting that was organized in Nagasaki, where 8,500 mayors of the cities across the world gathered. And I quote, "As global citizens, let us build up empathy and trust. Turn it into power to create peace." And these are some of the important references. Pranab Basu and Bharti Ray's book, published by Manohar, Meera Desai's work, which was written in 1957, in Women in Modern India, that is also in public domain, can be downloaded from the archives from internet. Susi Tharu and K. Lalita, they examined women's writings from 600 BC to the present. These are two volumes. Himalika Mohanty, she interviewed me about my grandmother, and we have a gendering diplomacy in the global south. That is an outcome of, we had a 3-month course on feminist foreign policy that can also be freely downloaded. I have shared the links with all of you. Once again, thank you for giving me this opportunity.
Ma'am, well, thank you very much for putting so much effort to make this long 27 slides PPT. Um, and I request participants to please keep yourself on mute, and you will be given the space to ask questions after the seminar, so that we can quickly complete all our talk without any delay. And coming to ma'am again, ma'am, such a wonderful presentation, and I am sure that all the participants have so much questions to ask. Even I have few questions to ask, because when we have studied the national movements, we have studied from a very basic points in schools or in college, not from a feminist point of view. So we have some very niche, nuanced question that you can give answer to us. Uh, Thank you again. Ma'am, please be with us, and we will get back to you once we are done with the other two talk. Okay.
Dr. Sahibzada Aurangzeb is available now
Yes.
because he's in some problem. Let us hear him also, right?
Yes. Sahibzada, sir, are you there?
Sahibzada sir, please unmute yourself. Hello, Sahibzada sir. He is in the attendance book, but I think he can't hear us.
Then let's go to our third speaker. You can call him once, or you can message him. Shall we wait?
You just go to the next speaker, because I think he is facing some technical difficulty. So please carry on to the next speaker.
Okay, okay. Okay, Arijit sir, I'm going to the next speaker then. Okay, please note that. Uh, on behalf of all the participants and the groups, global authors, and dynamic professors, I am welcoming our third speaker, Dr. Hashibur Rahman, Chairman and Associate Professor, Department of Political Science, Gopalganj Science and Technology University, Bangladesh, and he will be delivering his lecture on the topic of values of freedom in South Asia in case of Bangladesh. Sir, over to you.
Am I audible? Hello? Am I audible?
No, sir. Sir, you are. We can hear you, but very. Your sound is not clear.
Thank you, MS
You
Sohini
can bring
Datto.
your mic.
Thank you, MS Sohini Datto, for giving me a permission to deliver my lecture on the freedom of uh, uh, values of freedom in South Asia, the case of Bangladesh. At the outset, I would like to convey thanks to Arijit for inviting me to participate in this seminar. Uh, Good afternoon, esteemed chairpersons and distinguished fellow speakers from the India and Pakistan and Bangladesh.
Sir, we cannot hear you. You have to put your mic here. You can also try by removing your headphone. It is possible.
Uh,
Otherwise, you have to keep like this. Yeah.
okay, it is true and an honor to join today on the occasion of the 79th Independence Day of India in a seminar that unites voice from across South Asia to reflect on the values of freedom. For Bangladesh, the idea of freedom is not merely a political aspiration. It is the foundation of our national identity, born from a history of struggle, sacrifice, and uh, unwavering demand for dignity. From the language movement of 1952 to the Liberation War of 1971, and most recently, the July 2024 revolutions, our people have repeatedly shown that freedom must be defended whenever it is threatened. The history of struggle for freedom, uh, when we speak of freedom in Bangladesh, we must begin before 1971. The seeds were shown long before our liberation war. Partition of 1947 placed East Bengal within Pakistan as East Pakistan. While we shared a common religion with the West Pakistan, we quickly realized that political power and economic resources were unwillingly uh, concentrated in the western wing. Language movement from 1948 to 1952 uh, was the first major articulation of our value of freedom, not in military or economic terms, but in the right of speak our own language, Bangla. The martyrdom of Salam, Rafiq, Barkut, and others on 1st February 1952 established language as a central pillar of our national dignity. Economic disparity. There were a disparity when then in Pakistan, United Pakistan. First of all, I would like to discuss economic disparity. Throughout the 1950s and 1960s, East Pakistan generated the majority of Pakistan export earnings through jute and other products. Yet, development spending favored the West. Significant economic disparities excited between West and East Pakistan, now Bangladesh. From the country inception in 1947 until its separation in 1971, these disparities, uh, fueled by discriminatory policies and unequal resources allocations, uh, played a crucial role in the event leading to the Bangladesh Liberation War. There are another kind of exploitations, that is political exclusions. The 1970 general elections were kept Sheikh Mujibur Rahman's Aum League on absolute majority. Yet, instead of transforming power, the West Pakistan leadership unleashed military repression on March 25, 1971, was the culmination of 2 decades of structural inequality and denial of democratic rights. And just as in 1971, when people refused to accept political subjugation in July 2024, a new generation took to the streets to demand transparency, fairness, and democratic accountability, particularly in the context of the controversial quota system and the broader governance crisis. The July revolutions became a symbol of youth-led civic resistance, uh, the historical struggles of our nations, embodying the values of freedom in our constitution. So I would like to discuss from the constitutional framework point of view. When Bangladesh emerged as an independent nation, it is in, uh, enriched its values of freedom in the 1972 constitutions. Our fundamental principles were declared nationalism in this sense rooted in Bengali language and cultural heritage. Democracy, it people's right to choose their government. Socialism, the people's right to choose their government. Uh, Socialism interpreted as social and economic justice. Secularism ensuring religious freedom and equality for all faiths. Following the July revelation, which was held in 2024, a consensus committee would likely propose fundamental principles for a new constitution uh, centered on democracy, social justice, and equality. The committee would also likely uh, emphasize human dignity, pluralism, and potentially principles like nationalism, socialism, and secularism, depending on the specific context of the revelation. Furthermore, the committee might include principles related to education, environmental protections, and the emancipation of a specific group like peasants and workers. Democracy. Uh, uh, this would likely be a central tenet in this proposed by constitutional committee, emphasizing popular sovereignty, free fair elections, and rule of law. Social justice, a commitment to addressing inequality and ensuring a fair distribution of resources and opportunities would be crucial. Equality, this would uh, encompass legal, social, economic equality, potentially including gender equality and equality before the law. Human dignity, protesting the inherent worth and rights of every individual would be a fundamental principles. Pluralism means recognizing and respecting diversity in culture, religion, and political views would be important. Nationalism, secularism, and socialism, depending on the specific goals of the revelation, these principles might be included as seen in the Constitution of Bangladesh, emphasizing national unity, economic equality, or separation of religion at a state. Key constitutional grantee included. Our constitution has been already adopted after the two, 2024 regulations, fundamental rights such as freedom of speech, freedom of assembly, and freedom of religion, protection of minorities and marginalized communities, and provision for women's empowerment and rural development. The July 2024 movement is reflected an attempt by citizens, particularly students and young professionals, to reclaim these constitutional promises. Their mobilization was not only against a specific policy but against the erosion of participatory governance and accountability. Key values of freedom in Bangladesh. First of all, I would like to discuss cultural freedom. The language movement of 1952 is one of the most defining movements in the history of Bangladesh, deeply rooted in the struggle for cultural dignity and self-respect. In the years following the creation of Pakistan in 1947, attempts were made to impose Urdu as the role of state language, as the soul of state language, ignoring the fact that majority of the population spoke uh, Bangla. Excuse me. On February 21, 1952, students, activists, and ordinary citizens gathered in uh, defiance of this policy, despite a government ban on the public gatherings. The peaceful demonstrations in Dhaka turned tragic when police opened fire, killing several protesters, including Salam, Rafiq, Barkot, and Jabbar. They were mostly popularly known as our national heroes. Their sacrifice secured the recognition of Bangla as one of the state languages in 1956 and laid down the foundation of Bangladesh's future struggles uh, for justice. The movement was not just about language, it was about identity, equality, and resistance to cultural dominations. Today, February 21 is observed globally as International Mother Language. It is our pride, it is our symbol, it is our national unity and national pride also. Number two, I would like to discuss here that is political freedom. Political sovereignty and freedom in Bangladesh is the result of decades of struggle against political subjugation and economic exploitations. The seeds of independence were shown in 1950 and 1960 as East Pakistan uh, faced systematic neglected economic disparity and political marginalization under West Pakistani rule, which was called as the internal colonizations of Pakistan. The 1970 general election, in which the Awami League won a majority but was denied the right to form the government. It was the turning point of the Pakistan history. Why Pakistan has been broken down in 1971? It is the main causes. Number one cause is economic disparity. Number two is not to hand over the power. Who the political party Awami League has won the landslide victory, but they did not get power. The brutal military crackdown on March 25, 1971 led to the 9-month-long liberation war, during which millions were displaced and estimated 3 million of people lost their lives. Victory on December 16, 1971 marked the birth of Bangladesh as sovereign state. Political sovereignty in this context is not simply about independence from colonial for foreign ruler. It is about maintaining a governance system in which authority flows from the will of the people. It demands a strong democratic institution, transparent elections, and leaders who remain accountable to citizens rather than visited interest. Economic freedom. Economic freedom is an essential pillar uh, of national independence. For without economic stability, political and social reforms of freedoms are fragile. In the early years after independence, Bangladesh was one of the poorest nations in the world, facing food shortage destroyed infrastructure, minimal industrial capacity. Over the decades, the country pushed a prolonged development strategy, investing in rural development, expanding agricultural productivity through the use of high yield crops. In this way, I would like to discuss the, the over the decades, the country pursued a multi pro development strategy, investing in rural development, expanding agricultural productivity through the use of high yield crops, and encouraging small scale entrepreneurship through um, microfinance program pioneered by institutions such as Grameen Bank and BRAC. The ready-made garments industry emerged as the breakdown of the economy for Bangladesh. Social equality and social justice. The Constitution of Bangladesh guarantees all citizens equal protection of the law, irrespective of religion, race, caste, sex, or place of birth. Over the years, significant strides have been made in protecting gender equality, with women now serving leadership roles in politics, business, and civil society. Education programs have dramatically increased female literacy rates, and targeted initiatives such as stipends for girls' education have reduced dropout rates. Bangladesh has also implemented policy to protect the rights of religion and ethnic minorities, through challenges remain in ensuring consistent enforcement. Issues such as child marriage, gender-based violence, and discriminations against marginalized communities still persist. Freedom of expressions. Freedom of expression is a uh, cornerstone of any democratic society or democratic state also. And in Bangladesh, it is cherished desire as a constitutional right. This freedom allows citizens uh, to criticize government policies, express diverse opinions, and engage in meaningful public debates. Historically, the country has had a vibrant tradition of political discussions, with newspaper, literature, and arts playing a vital role in shaping public opinion. However, in recent years, uh, concern have grown over censorship, legal restrictions, and harassment of journalists and activists. Digital platforms and social media have created a new spaces for expression, but have also brought new challenges, including uh, misinformation, online harassment. Despite these difficulties, civil society groups, independent journalists, and rural activists continue to push a greater transparency, accountability, and openness for the society of Bangladesh as a whole. Challenges remain in Bangladesh. Now we would like to discuss the challenges to freedom in contemporary Bangladesh. Democratic deficit is one of the predominant cause. Political polarizations between major political parties has often undermined parliamentary effectiveness. Allegations of electoral irregularities and uh, space for political dissent remain pressing concern. The events of July 2024 showed that when institutions fail to respond to public grievances, citizens are compelled to take matter into their own hands through mass mobilization. Uh, Freedom of expression. While Bangladesh has a vibrant media landscape, concerns over the Digital Security Act and self uh, censorship among journalists point to a narrowing civic space. In July 2024, citizens journalism and social media activism played a crucial role in bypassing information restriction. Economic inequality. Despite impressive GDP growth, wealth distribution remain uneven. The urban-rural divide and gender-wage gaps threaten the principles of social justice. Protesters in July 2024 also voiced concern about economic fairness and the widening gap between ordinary citizens and political elites. Social and religious tension. Although secularism is a constitutional principle, but in practical, it is far from the reality, far from the principles of our constitutions. There have been a instance of communal violence and intolerance, challenging our pluralistic ethos. External pressure, geographical positioning between India and China, and complex relation with Myanmar over the Rohingya crisis test our sovereignty and diplomatic maneuvering. Bangladesh contribution to international values of freedom. Bangladesh has a lot of contribution to international values of freedom. Bangladesh has not only fought for its own freedom, but also promote these values internationally. Peacekeeping missions. Bangladesh is one of the largest contributor to UN peacekeeping operations, reflecting a commitment to global peace and stability. Climate diplomacy is another proud matters of us, advocating for climate justice, especially for valuable nations, is part of our moral stance on equity and fairness. Refugee protection, hosting over a million Rohingya refugees since 2017, demonstrates our humanitarian commitment despite immense diplomatic or domestic challenges. The July revolution adds another dimension. It shows that the Bangladeshi people remain active guardian for democracy and civic rights, which is a message that resonates far beyond our borders. The way forward. Last but not the least, I'd like to discuss the way forward to sustain and extend our freedom. Bangladesh must deepen democracy, ensure transparent elections, strengthen parliamentary institutions, and encourage political pluralism. Uh, Protect civic space, reform laws that restricted freedom of expressions while promoting responsible media, advance our social justice, address structural inequalities in wealth, education, healthcare, and sector of the states, preserve secularism and cultural pluralism, actively counter communalism through education and legal enforcement, strengthen regional cooperation, use platforms like SARC, demonstrate to promote our mutual respect and share development in South Asia. In spirit of July 2024 reminds us that younger generation is ready to defend these principles if institution fail to do so. Despite significant progress, Bangladesh faced challenges in upholding the values of freedom, political polarizations, corruptions, poverty, and restrictions of freedom of speech are ongoing concern. Ensuring fair elections, strengthening judicial independence, promoting transparency are essential to protect freedom. But between the opposing parties can help bridge the divides, engaging youth in political process and enhancing the educational initiative on civil rights and crucial step forward, building a more defended electorate, informed electorate. By prioritizing these measures, Bangladesh can create a more resilient framework for freedom, enabling all citizens to participate fully in the democratic process and contribute to the nation's development. Uh, Last of all, I would like to say that let us remember freedom is not just the absence of oppressions, but the presence of justice, equality, and human rights. Thank you all for hearing me.
Thank you, sir, for summarizing the evolution of freedom. Sir, we have many questions, and I just want to say that you have mentioned some examples of July upspring, the students' activism, then Rohingya crisis, refugee, and you have also mentioned about the principles of freedom that Bangladesh is also contributing internationally and its role in the UN. So, in our question answer session, I would like to give some examples to understand the concepts or the principles of freedom that you have mentioned, the Bangladesh's framework of freedom. So we need to understand what are the principles that Bangladesh as a country is looking to, and some examples of students you have mentioned about younger generation. So younger generation, I'm more focused into college students or those who are working, and how they are contributing to the development of Bangladesh. And July upspring, the if the principle of freedom has changed in 2024's July upspring, if we compare to the previous principle of freedom at the time of independence from Pakistan. Uh, Sir, thank you very much for summarizing the whole constitution of Bangladesh, and we will get back to you once we complete with our third speaker. Okay, so sir, Sahibzada sir, are you here?
Shahid sir, please yes.
Yes, listening and waiting for my turn.
Yes, sir, we are also waiting. Okay. So on behalf of everyone, I am welcoming our first speaker, but he will end the talk today. Dr. Shahibzada Aurangzeb, Chairman and Professor, Department of English, Literature and Linguistics, Iqra National University, Peshawar, Pakistan, and he will deliver his lecture on the topic of independence and responsibility. Sir, over to you.
Hello, sir. Hello. Aurangzeb, sir. I
First
think
of all,
you are using
yes,
two mic. Please
yes.
check the one.
Okay, are you listening?
Using two device?
So there is a background like sound coming, I guess.
Yes.
Hello.
Hello. Are you
Assalamu alaikum.
using two device?
Hello and good evening. Hello.
Yes. You are audible.
Now it is audible to you?
Yes,
Sir, actually,
audible.
your voice is echoing.
Are you?
Sir, there is an echo in your voice, but we are listening you.
First of all,
Please.
I would like to extend my sincere thanks to all of you for considering me to share a few words regarding independence, regarding freedom, and then regarding what is actually the ability to have such things. The values of freedom, it is actually something which is considered as a conceptual one, because it's the central theme that I wish to address over here, that how should we go about just to define freedom.
I think Dr. Dheeraj Singh Roy is out. That is why there is so much disturbance.
Oh, then we'll have to unfold certain values of the freedom, and then certain various interpretations regarding that freedom, and then how can one depend on other and then endorse his freedom with a specific context of ability. First, The question is whether freedom should be equated with the ability, act, and then one of the most debated in the literature and with a specific context of freedom. Ability is actually understood by creating certain things which may be considered as ableness. Then in a summarized form, we can say that it is actually ableness of something which is based on independence, which is based on freedom. Although there may be certain justification regarding abstaining from equating freedom with a more ability to have at one, although it may be considered as that freedom is a collective agent. It's not a single, but this collection of agents must be considered with ableness, must be connected with ableness. And this ableness may be treated as social freedom. The freedom, and then if we really to think that it is important for the persons should be able to lead the life that he or she would choose, then it is a general category of positive freedom, with which we have to concern here. Means we will have to follow certain things which we may be able to justify for that particular things which may be considered as ability, and then with the connection of that ability, freedom. Although there is a huge difference between freedom and liberty. Liberty is something we should read with to some extent that freedom is lack of interference with the actions that one has to right to do, and that is referring to the second one. It may be considered as the negativity of freedom. Freedom may be associated with certain cultural values, may be associated with certain religious values, and similarly, certain legal values. So in simple words, we can say that if we consider it in a narrow sense, that there is a freedom, there may be an independence, but all these independence concerns and all these may be connected to, may be bound to the certain values of the things. It may be a social one, it may be a religious one, it may be certain political one, it may be certain legal one. First, we will have to know about the values and then the ability. So after the implications of such expert views regarding to the definitions of freedom and independence following certain status, it can be concluded that there is a relationship between the value of freedom and the freedom itself. It may be considered as lack of ability by exploring certain implications that follow from assuming that benefit from the view. To recall, there must be certain variations or versions through which these freedoms or these kind of abilities maybe amounts to the mere ability to act only. That act may be a diminution of people freedom, that may be a correspondence one to the abilities already being concerted or even being promoted by people regarding freedom, just means to point out what is actually being forced liberations and then freedoms. The question concerns whether freedom should be equated with the ability to act is one of the most debated one in literature. Is we already concerned with certain values related to the culturals, related to the religion, related to the legal, and other certain things. So far, from the discussions we're here, freedom simply is an opportunity to accept a conceptual one. But certain constraints can limit people opportunities and their freedoms. Keeping in view all these abilities, certain exercise of freedom, certain opportunities, a lot of questions are there related to being based on the political philosophers of the past decades. For example, that the kind of obstacles can render people unfree, and do only obstacles imposed which may be considered as non-removed by other human beings for the sources of freedom and unfreedom, or can also help inflicted inabilities or natural obstacles, such as we can see certain storms are there that prevents the sailing of boats from the coast, render people unfree. Freedom, the rest, can be divided into two main campuses. The huge division that may be considered as a social freedom theorist, and who believe that freedom is actually a social relationship, and therefore that only certain obstacles for which other human beings are morally being, we can say, responsible to render the people unfree. Certain constraints are there, but the number of questions concerning the strength of the constraints, that how should a constraint on freedom limit the ability of the individuals in order to count as a source of unfreedom. The question concerning the strength, and then certain restrictions. Then I will identify this with a specific approach to contribute advance to the contemporary debate concerning whether freedom should be understood as a social relationship or as a purely ability-based concept. I already shared about the one is called social relationship and the other is called ability-based concept. If I explain that what follows, the value of freedom in my view is shapes with a simple definition of the freedom that further throughout the entire discussion, it can be assumed that reading certain issues of strength of the constraints on freedom, and then with a proper elaboration, determined whether this is a clear elaborations of a great detail of the 2 points related to the social relationship and purely based ability based concept. After having certain views on the overall approach of freedom, that can be concludes with the sense that ability and social relationships is actually produce freedom. And then these definitions or this approach may be considered as exploring with certain constraints to assume and that validity. And then one should endorse versions of freedom that is coextensive with ability, and that freedom amounts to the mere ability to act. On such a view, that people freedom corresponds and with those abilities and certain points through which one will have to achieve specific objectives for which one is going to struggle for. Keeping in view the South Asian approach for the said, at initial stage, the subcontinent, and then with certain views of abilities, certain constraints, and then with the divisions of independent states, Pakistan, Bangladesh, and India. It may totally be dealt with the abilities of individual along with the people's freedom for which they struggle for. So the concept between the two, that freedom and unfreedom, independence, it may be dealt as an individual entity or it may be considered as a whole. It may be dealt individually. Same is the case that independence and freedom, it is an interpretative approach toward the concept, although some may disagree with because of certain approaches toward freedom. It has been with a bit fundamental disagreements, although we may be considered as free, although we may be, I already shared that freedom is something which may be considered as an individual touch, although there is no freedom at all. We are legally bound, we are culturally bound, we are socially bound. Now, these boundaries are actually show the concept of freedom. It is because of these social ethics, it is because of the religious ethics, it is because of certain legal ways through which we struggle for the approach of freedom. And in particular, it is assumed that freedom is non-specifically valuable, and that therefore the value of freedom ranges over very specific instances. Then the value of freedom determines what freedom is, and the different implication follows is. The value of freedom, the ability, it is an opportunity that plays a role in every theory of justice. And it has clearly been shared that freedom has non-specific value, and with such, that deals with the currency of justice. if almost all of the assembled people have a single social values, single cultural approaches, then it can be considered as to require a certain distribute to protect their freedom. And for their specific valuable liberties, which may be considered as freedom certain justice. The value of freedom that can be justified by appealing of two distinct kind of reasons, that is exological reasons that appeal to the good, and deontic reasons that appeal to the right. One is good and the other is right. So the one which is good, it may be considered as a contextual one. The other which may be considered as right, it may be considered as socially, legally, and religiously right one. While good-based views justify the values of freedom by appealing to the benefits that having freedom has for persons, and then certain interpretations of the values of freedom for the person affecting terms. In simple words, we can say that if we consider that freedom, so there must be certain values which may be deemed to by claiming that it is good for a person to have that liberty, and that goodness attributed by promoting to the people's certain freedoms for the sake of achieving that values or valuable objects only and only for the purpose to drive the values of freedom from the right appeal to reasons concerning how persons should be treated. It particularly appeals to those values refraining from the interfering with the freedom of persons as something that is owed to persons of recognition, identity, and then with their moral status and agents. Although good-based views that has been shared, clearly interpreting the values of freedom in person affecting terms, it claims that people benefit from having freedom because people desire of freedom, and that contributes to the achievements of personal goods like agencies, like autonomy, like a well-being, and it attributes personal values to the freedom, claiming that freedom has values for the person who has freedom. Furthermore, it is either to value the freedom in person affecting terms without the attributing personal values of freedom, that is value for other view, and attribute impersonal value to the freedom. We have also certain questions and possibility that is attributing intrinsic values of freedom. It is further clearly explained that certain different senses related to the freedom, certain justice, and that should be grounded to the objective reasons full and values that none specifically in consideration concerning to the subjective value that individual persons attribute to freedom, either because they desire for to have freedom, and if there is no desire, it can only be enjoyed through the experience of freedom of other people, play a role in fulfilling the stability requirement of freedom, certain justice. and then it can be clearly manipulated with the measure of freedom that should be considered as human need. And from the argument promised on need, it is possible to draw the sufficient foundation for freedom-centered justice. The villaging of life of freedom is a good life, since freedom has a contributory value for agency and in a sense of autonomy, and hereby also calling to respect the reasonable values of those who do not hold an agency based on the autonomy-based account, and then of a good life. Having freedom is objectively valuable for well-being, which is turned and can be shared subjectively. This subjectivity and objectivity is actually an attainment of valuable functionings. I already discussed that freedom is actually a narrow, non-specific value, as we are bound socially, culturally, religiously, and keeping in view such type of restrictions, still an individual struggle for the freedom, and it is only and only for the purpose to fulfill the desire, and even can be considered as to harm others. Although freedom, certain justice, it can be considered as a plural concept and can be dealt with the value of freedom that can be considered as a balanced with the well-being. Freedom, and then non-specifically freedom-centered approach, that is contributory value for the achievement of
Hello, sir.
well-being.
Hello, sir. Please bind up because Justice Subhasis Talapatra have some another program.
Okay, sir.
And we are also running out of time.
Yeah. So in simple, just to conclude, that our generations cannot be like that who struggle for and then disturbed the independence of other with the great achievements, feelings, and responsibilities. Independence is a great feeling in simple words, and responsibility is not so bad itself. We are finally grow up on your own and have access to your own life according to how you see fit, as long as you keep up the responsibility. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for your speech on freedom and the many parameters that you have discussed on the concept of freedom. Sir, in the question answer round, I think there are some questions coming up right now. The difference between freedom and liberty, examples from the three different countries. So we will get back to you once we are done with the presidential address by our chairperson. Subhasis, sir, over to you.
I was hearing both the three presentation with rapt attention, and all the presentation is just cover the various facets of the democratic exercise that face some difficulties, crises, and also its engagement with the collective, means society, not only the individual, because the individual and collective is a very important this component of a democratic system. We can all remember there is a debate over whether the democracy is at all a very effective mechanism to implement the development programs or not, because the first implementation requires quick decision. It may not happen through the democratic exercises. uh, we all remember as a student of political slide, Plato in his Republic did not want a person to lead the society by way of election. He rather says a wise leader will lead the society for its best possible development. And much later, Tocqueville says the democracy is nothing but a tyranny of the majority. So these are the all we know as a, but the two facets of the democracy are very important. That we must realize that democracy actually protects the natural rights of the human being. And there is a very categorical distinction between the natural rights and the human rights. Natural rights in the Declaration of Independence in the America, they says the natural rights is those are with which a human being is born. So his dignity, his right to live on, his right to get the proper environment and not to be oppressed by someone else. This is the four corners of the natural rights. The natural rights is the foundation of the modern ideals of the human rights that Professor Vibhuti Patel was referring to, this Universal Human Rights Declaration of 1948. Actually, all these have come from our practice of the natural rights. Most important thing in a democracy is that it is not the governance of the kings, of the clan leaders. It is not a democracy by the traders, by forming a cartel. This is a different kind of a governance. And only by a social contract. We have adopted this system. Nobody has imposed on us. So who are we? We are the people, are the citizen. As all of us know, those who have read the American Constitution or the Indian Constitution, the common words they have actually selected is that we the people of the Republic of US, we the people of the Republic of the Union, they are this popular sovereign in the democracy. So these popular sovereigns make a popular sovereignty. Their only target or their only approach to a democracy is that our this intention, interest, and our dignity should be protected through this kind of a governments. Recently held Lok Sabha election, those who have closely studied the UP voting pattern, there is a significant change and shift. Even the political parties did not visualize there will be such result will spring up in such a manner, because it is people's own engagement through non-partisan popular movements by the peasants, by the students, by the community leaders, again particularly the caste operation. So that has actually resulted in what we have got in the UP. That may not be a permanent feature. That is an immediate reactions to the circumstances. So in a democracy, everybody has, those who accepted this thing, the role of the government would be minimal. As we called in political science, it is a limited government that can protect the democracy most efficiently. So now the question is that individual is very important, because democracy is tested whether they protect the one singular individual's right appropriately, whether he is free to utter certain things, and after that is protected by the state or not. What happened to you all know the Tamil writer, right? That what happened to that person? He wrote a person, this novel is half woman, And after that, he was completely excommunicated by the collective and the so-called society. And he wrote in a social media, the such and such is living, but the author has died. He is no more living. So after that, the Madras High Court took up the matter, and there's a 160-page judgment regarding this freedom of expression by Justice Kaul. Justice Kaul says what kind of individual freedom of or the expression we are talking of when someone exercises that right and immediately on the following day he will be killed. This is not a right of expression, another thing. So the situation is very complex. Even as a judge in Nagaland, I found, we know from the outside of the Nagaland that the women are very independent, they have the role in the social. There was a public interest litigation, I tell you. This the Naga Ho, you have heard of that. It is a kind of a bigger panchayat to run the these villages. This formation of the panchayat is made in such a way the women are disenfranchised. They completely stated they cannot vote for, they cannot just contest the election to be elected to that home. So the public interest litigation came. The government argued that this is the tradition, so court should not, under Article 371A, should not intervene in the matter. Then that I made a division in my judgment that whether the fundamental right and the Article 371A, which is not acknowledged as the fundamental rights, which will prevail. I say government must take steps to ensure the voting right of the women and right to them to get elected to the home. There was a huge chaos, but government, since the Supreme Court did not take any interference in this matter, the government passed their bill, and accordingly now in Nagaho, these women are given their right to exercise the vote. So we are every day experimenting with the democracy. Even today, Professor Patel must know that in the northeast area, in the central India, the tribal women doesn't have the right of inheritance, because neither in the secular, the Succession Act, nor in the Hindu Succession Act, they are not covered by that, because according to the Hindu Succession Act, they are not Hindu, so they are excluded. But in Section 2 of that Act, it is there, the central government by notification can include them in the definition of Hindu, means they will be treated as the Hindu women to get it. But there is a majority of the tribal in Kohima or Mizoram, they are Christians. So one litigation came, I am just sharing my experience. Litigation came to me that 3 girls who was left by one father is a very rich farmer. Now, according to the conventional succession in the tribal society, those entire property would go in favor of the male, even they do not have the brother, to the male, to his father, or to the next step, whoever the male in the clan, to him it will go. There was a case, and they lost in the trial court, because trial court says, how can the court can help you? It is so I say the same way. I say that since the notification under section the 2 is waiting since 1956, and if someone thinks that from 1956 to 2012 is not sufficient time, I know one of the persons to disagree with it. So what I have done, I say that till such notification comes, those who are Hindu believer in the tribal society, though they are tribal, they will be governed by the Hindu Succession Act, and those who are Christian, they will be governed by the Indian Succession Act till the new laws come. Fortunately or unfortunately, this judgment has not been tested in the Superior Court, so the government has accepted it. There is as Professor Sahibzada Aurangzeb was just pointing out on the point of the ability. I think that he was meaning the empowerment of the marginalized. The women are the most marginalized in our society even today. A very creamy section of the women are definitely empowered, definitely well educated. even then, even that in that creamy layer also, the discrimination, I tell you, is very high. Example is representation of the women in the superior judiciary. That is the thing that we are observing. So how we can, what are the features is so central to the issue? That we can say these are the essential feature of a thriving democracy. I just point out, and then running first. That first of the equality and justice, and this can be segmented uh, in in sub-elements to understand better way. Number one is the respect for human rights and fundamental freedoms. This will be the yardstick to test whether we are living in a democracy or not. Freedom of association, expression, and opinion. Access to power and its exercise in accordance with rule of law. Free and fair election by universal suffrage and by secret ballot as the expression of the will of the people. The pluralistic system of political parties and organizations. The separation of power. The independence of the judiciary. Transparency and accountability in public administration. Free, independent, and pluralistic media. Why this, the last point is important, because I'm telling you, unless citizens are informed, they cannot take a considered decision. So the getting the information. Problems today in India is that we are not getting information. From the several corners, we are dumped with certain information. We do not have any proof of the verification of those information from the government quarters. So we are being flown away by the social media engineering, the newspaper, we apparently biased to the certain class of the political leaders. So this is a real crisis nowadays. So what I will I will agree. So I have a question, since I talked to Professor Arijit Chakrabory, that I was actually, we requested them to defer it for 1 hour. If I do not go now, it will be a kind of a sacrilege. I have to attend the next meeting. Yes. So that I'm just concluding that by saying that new approaches always come to improve the democracy. We have not found any better system than democracy, but we have seen the failures of the democracy that apprehend and creates concern in us, and we find that what is the future of the democracy. I must say that if the democracy doesn't have future, we are already under the corporation serfdom, that we'll have no future, humankind will no future, no human dignity will be there. So as this Nagasika issue was there, that it is the one of the example, if the humankind doesn't have a control over their rulers, that this kind of this political catastrophe will be thrust upon the part of the civilization. What we are seeing the some part of the countries now. But these three the states, India, Bangladesh, and Pakistan, my major concern is that after all these years, we could not have built up a system of dialogue, a system of friendship, as a cooperation for the development of each other. We are trying to destroy us, and we reach nowhere, only to the destruction. We have to rethink, if you want to build democracy and a thriving democracy, we must not convert the entire subcontinent into the zone of conflict. That is my suggestion to you. Thank you. Accommodating me, I will take your leave to leave this session. You continue with the Q&A. I think Sohini is there. She will be just conducting all the question and answers. Thank you all.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for such an interesting insight. and we have read the constitution but never got a chance to know what is going on in reality. So we would like to have you in another session and just to
Of
focus on
course.
the examples that you have mentioned about the Naga tribes. This is one example you have mentioned, and also I have many questions that you can
I tell you, there are lot of unresolved issues is are
yeah,
there.
yeah.
Lot of unresolved issues is are there. Only if this run our parliament following the constitution, then we can find some ways. Otherwise, by way of taking an extreme positions anywhere, we cannot save Indian society. It is so plural. It is so, I will not say they're so divided. And the cultural traditions are so different. So we have to learn to coexist with each other. That is the actually only the democracy can hold all these different people together with the different ideas and different expectation from the state. And last word I was saying that I say democracy is not state. How the state would act and how the citizen would act, these are the within these are the, I think, zone of consideration for the democratic exercises. Thank you, everyone. And I also thank Dr. Arijit, who has, knowing my background, is inviting, taking a huge risk. I actually.
But it was extremely bold. But we need this dialogue. I think that's the only way to deal with jingoism.
Yes.
And I think conflicts.
Thank you, Professor Patel.
Thank you.
It was a wonderful presentation also. I taken some notes. Yeah. Thank you all.
Extremely inspiring. I think it will give more courage to all the young scholars to stick out their neck. your presidential address. Very
Okay. All right.
Yeah. Ma'am, you have one question about the understanding on personalist political and how it has seen from Indian perspective.
Yeah, I think, see, the way patriarchy divides into women's lives into personal is a women's life and man's life is that of a public. So whenever women do anything or any problem that women face, it is called as a personal problem. That is one thing. And this doesn't remain only in the family. It remains in the community, the way politicians think, the way employers think. Anything that is related to women, whether it is a sexual violence or discrimination or discriminatory wages or unequal treatment at the workplace or in a community life, or even when she tries to speak about her problem, she is always snubbed as a personal, as a talking about her personal problem. While the same thing when men say it is called public. While the whole dichotomy between personal and public is artificial, because your personal life is affected by the political setup, whether you will get right to education or not. 4 years back, women from Afghanistan thought that every girl has a right to study, and now you see after 6th standard, no girl in Afghanistan can. So her personal quest for education is thwarted by the political situation. Okay, what is the level of autonomy or freedom or restriction or enabling or disabling environment is decided by the customs and traditions and state and laws and uh, uh, GRs. There was a time when Army, Navy and Air Force did not allow women to take part. Okay, now we have very different thing that today if you see so many YouTube videos are talking about women playing a very pivotal role in strategic defense. No, so this way, so everything personal is political. In whatever problems women are facing, they are linked to your political environment that you are in. So that is what they mean. Because by using women, by shoving or confining women into personal, we curtail their agency. As I think Honorable Justice also said, there is another question that what can we do between to create more cordial relationship and not to convert this India, Pakistan, Bangladesh geography and the entire subcontinent into a public zone. I think people to people dialogue like this are very important. I'm really extremely thankful to Mr. Arijit Chakrabory for taking such a bold stand by bringing scholars from these three countries for a dialogue, and not dialogue in terms of tutu meme or one-upmanship, but genuine understanding of as human beings, as citizens, and what kind of transnational or cross-border solidarity that we can create. Because wherever the violation of freedom takes place, we have to stick our tongue neck, and that's what we have learned in the women's movement right from the very beginning. We know that when the jingoism was at its peak, it was Gandhian activist Nirmala Deshpande. She walked from Delhi to Karachi, and we had a very veteran feminist of Pakistan, Asma Jahangiri, who walked from Karachi to Delhi. Okay, and it was not just a walk. People were meeting her, they were talking about it, they were explaining their understanding of why we need this kind of a people to people solidarity, understanding each other, and also conveying to our political leaders not to use the path of destruction, because who are the losers of war? And that was the question which women asked way back in 1910, when the first people, all the world leaders were preparing for the First World War. They were saying that we want bread, we don't want bullet, we want milk, we don't want tanks, and women get anything by this war. We had similar efforts where during the 70s, where community from all over the world came out in support of Vietnam. No more Vietnam. There were students and youth, and I think Dr. Sahibzada's presentation on freedom and unfreedom and the dignity and this, that also has a bearing, because it was the leaders of student leaders of those times, and especially they threw up two major thinkers, Sartre, existentialist, and also Foucault, who also challenged the meta theories and meta structures, and talked about bringing the voiceless people into their voices in the mainstream discourse. That was the third one. Is that speaking about the issues which are very extremely important, because why should we allow social media space to be used by notorious people who do trolling and who use unparliamentary language and who terrorize and humiliate and subjugate children and women and innocent senior citizens? We should use this space. We should speak about these issues. We should write about it. We should also issue the statements whenever violation of human rights takes place, or building public opinion through social media. I think these are the various ways in which citizens can play pivotal role in this. And first of all, getting scientific evidence-based understanding on the issue, the way Professor Hasibullah told us the whole story of the liberation struggle in the pre-liberation struggle phase and after 1971, and there too how the different contours of this people's quest for liberation, justice, dignity, that has explained. So whatever we read in the mainstream media or the newspapers, as Justice Honorable Justice told us, it is all biased. It can be very, very ruling class or the dominant voices which are there. Paulo Freire, the Latin American revolutionary, said that whatever you see in the mainstream is only talking about the status quo, while the people and the citizens what they are talking. So those voices should be brought to the fore, and that is why I think that platforms like this are very important. I have gained great knowledge from Professor Sibullah's lecture and Dr. Sahibzada's understanding, and it is so empowering to know that there are people who are in the same wavelength of sensitivity and sensibility, and you have here Honorable Justice who also endorses your viewpoint. I think that itself gives us courage to hundreds of young scholars to use their power of pen, power of communication, and a power of articulation and critical analysis for changing this world. This is a 21st century. It's a knowledge economy. Knowledge ideation are extremely important to reorganize the world for peacekeeping, peace building, and peacemaking. Thank you.
Ma'am, I'm just curious to understand one thing. Whenever we have studied or listen to lectures on the women's role in the national movement, more I have seen that it is symbolic in nature, that women, these are the women and they have done this, and if they have enjoyed any political chair or constitutional rights after the independence. But I'm just curious to know, if there is any like debate or politics. Example, we have studied about Gandhi Ambedkar debate, the debate between Gandhi's non-violent satyagraha with Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose. Ideology, and with Rabindranath Tagore and Gandhi, there are debates about Western education and indigenous knowledge system. So I'm just curious to understand what is the role of women in the partition, in the divide and rule, if there is any debate within the women's movement or not, so that I can also read this in my research, and also it will
So I think there have been, when it comes to the freedom movement, first of all the women social reformers, they were also extremely effective writers. So if you see Tarabai Shinde, she challenges the double standard of sexual morality when she encounters a young Brahmin widow who was pregnant and was ostracized and ill-treated and thrown out by her family. And she wrote this book called Stree Purush Tulna in Marathi, which was now translated by Gay Lombard into English. Or similarly, we can see the Kavya Phule, or the writings of Savitri Bai Phule, where she was challenging the conservative forces which did not want women to get educated. They were supporting that 10-year-old girl can be married to 42-year-old man, no, or a 50-year-old man, or the widows' plight of the widows. They said they have to suffer. So these dialogues are very much there in different parts of the country. So whether it is in Tamil Nadu or even in Kerala, we have Dakshayani Velayuddin's writing when she fought against the imposition of patriarchy. The Dalit women cannot cover their chest, and the big social reform movement which took place. Then we also have, during the freedom struggle, the dialogue between Rajkumari Amrit Kaur and Gandhiji. And in Harijan, it is to come out as a dialogue between them, where she asked that why should we, how can we reform our society? Are men and women, what should be the conjugal relationship? They called it if they are companion, why women have such a derogatory status in the family? Or should we raise our boy and girl like equal? Then what should be the women's role in the freedom movement? And it's so many times Gandhiji also said women can be supported, they are good mothers and this, and they would challenge also. Okay, even a person like Kamala Devi Chattopadhyay, who established, when Gandhiji gave this idea of Swadeshi, it was she who said that no, we need to institutionalize Khadi. That's why she formed the Khadi and village industries, this thing. When the visions documents were prepared, People's Plan was prepared by the socialist Tarkunde and others. We had a Tata Birla plan, which came from Tata and Birla. We had another national plan, which Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru gave. These women, they also came up, women's role in plant economy. They also wrote, so they also did it. The whole debate about franchise. People say that Indian women got right to vote on platter. No. Read right from 1960 when AIWC was formed. There is a book which I have also shown in my Aparna Vashu and Bharti Ray's book, which says that so many dialogues took place even within Congress, where women say that we need, because the suffragist movement was already going on in our Ireland and England, no, where women did not have right to vote. While the women from Congress, they were also debating with the political leaders that why adult franchise, women should be covered under adult franchise. And that was a very long debate which went on, and so many important arguments were put forward that if women can be equal partners for the freedom movement, why can't they be equal partners as citizens? So women are citizens, and that's why we can see the debate which went on for 18 months in the Constituent Assembly. After that, we came up with Article 14, 15, 16, 21. And also directive principles, which also have this thing. About personal law, so many debates took place. That why we have 3,000 customary laws. We have religion-based personal laws. Women from different religious groups are treated differently in the matter of marriage, divorce, custody of child, maintenance, inheritance, and also the patrilocality or patrilocality. Some communities in northeast and south, they had a matrilineage, while rest of it. So lot of debates took place even in that, and that is why when the codification of personal laws took place and the critique of codification, because 1865 Christian personal law was was enacted to protect the rights of white bureaucrats who had wives in England and who were cohabiting with Indian women. And they wanted both the women to be enlarged. And that is why the whole struggle which went on for reform in the Christian Divorce Act, because Christian Divorce Act that only adultery can't be ground for divorce. Adultery has to be coupled with bestiality, perversion, and it's so difficult to prove bestiality and perversion when your wife is 5,000 miles away. So all these debates are still there. There are in archives. More and more researchers should take interest in it. And now they are quite because there are so many archives. We have the Sparrow archives, we have Prajna archives in Chennai, we have Nehru Memorial archives in Delhi. So and also Asiatic Society, they also have these archives. Even in response to Royal Commission of Labour, which talked about night shift for women in coal mines and women in textile and jute industry. A lot of debates took place that what kind of safeguards women need to have. Maternity benefit, oh, such a big this struggle. They were not even ready to grant in textile mills of Mumbai and Coimbatore and Kanpur and Ahmedabad and Kolkata. Women had to report for work immediately after delivering the baby and cleaning the baby. A neighbor or someone would go with her to the factory and she would feed that. From that to that. So almost whatever reforms we have got regarding women, massive work has gone into it. All those processes can be brought out by going through those GRs and diaries and yeah, lot of
Yes, ma'am. I think Hasipur Rahman sir, are you there? There is one question. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So there is a question about the contemporary principles of freedom.
Accountability and respect for collectivity. Vandasham.
Yeah, how to take forward relationship between all three nations and the contemporary the scenario of freedom or the principles of freedom.
Okay. Thank you,
If you
Sohini.
can give some
Again,
examples.
thank again,
Sir.
Vibhuti ma'am,
Yeah.
for his nice presentation. I'd like to say in earlier questions, which was posed by the Sohini, what was the relations, what was the differences between post 2024 regulations or pre 2024 regulations? So there is massive differences between two time two during the two times. Because when principles of freedom is absent in the society, the frustrations of people become the predominant in the society and state as a whole. In Bangladesh, 16 years election is absent in periodic elections. If you know that the periodic election is the main pillar of a democratic society, in this way, I can set a example from the India. India has a big democratic country. India has a big heritage or traditions to hold the periodic elections or regular interval of elections. But Bangladesh is absent from these notions. That is why the people of Bangladesh is frustrated to become a democratic society. We can't cast my vote in favor of our candidates or in favor of my political parties. That's why the people of the Bangladesh, the July 2000 movement is reflected and attempt by citizens, particularly students and young professionals, to reclaim these constitutional promises, which was granted by Bangladeshi constitutions. Particularly students and young professionals reclaim in this way that their mobilization was not against a specific policy or not against specific opportunities, but their wish against the erosion of participatory governance and accountability. That's why they become a series. They become has a serious desire to the nations that Bangladesh has replaced the principles of freedom in this way. Thank you, Sohini.
Yeah, thank you, sir. Thank you so much. Uh, and we are running out of time. I think there is another question by Vandana Sharma. Evolving socio-political landscape, what strategies can societies adopt to maintain a healthy equilibrium between granting individual the freedom to make their own choice and ensuring that this freedom is exercised with a strong sense of accountability and respect for collective well-being? I would like, Vandana, if you can narrow down your question, like in what context you are saying, because
Sure. Yeah.
it's a broad question. Means the general answer will be to teach these things from our school days that we have lacked, getting field surveys or field experiences so that we can understand what we are studying and what is a reality. Example that in schools we do not have much knowledge about the reservation of women or reservation of SC, STs communities or OBC community, and suddenly we are in college or after the class 12, we are like, what, that is so unfair to us, like reservation is so unfair. But if we study policies from a very early age, from class 4, that we can understand what is the philosophy behind the reservation system, and if it is okay if we are not getting our dream jobs or dream things because there is less number of seat, or there is a reservation, it is okay, because now at that time we can understand the philosophy behind the reservation. So if we do not study much about the social science, I remembered in schools we have one book where it is history, political science, economics in one book only in CBSE and NCRT. In 11 and 12, I think there is one book for political science, one book for history, but it is also optional subject. You can choose or you cannot choose. So at that time we are so focused on bringing marks and to get a good college, and we lack this basic principles that we are struggling today about this accountability. I think this is one thing we can highly depend on.
And here, once again, I would say personal is political democratization of family. So once you get the values of democratization, if there are difference of opinion, instead of hitting parents, hitting their child or killing them if they choose their life partner, no, honor crimes are extremely high in all three countries. So I think that is also it. So in personal life, as democratic you are, in public life and community life and political life and life at a workplace, you are going to have those internalized democratic ethos. You would accept difference of opinion. You would accept plurality. And I think in school also we have to have early childhood education right from the preschool. This kind of values have to be nurtured. That there can be, like my Nani, we were laughing at a neighbor who was speaking Hindi in a very South Indian accent. Immediately she said, "No, this is not done. He's speaking in. You try to learn. Can you speak his language, Kannada? Learn at least 5 words of this thing." So immediately we learned that we need to respect each and every. Those were the days where all southern states below Vindhya were called Madrasi. They did not only Madrasi. They were not called Karnataka, this thing, or even the Punjab. So this kind of value education, if given to children will become more democratic, and they will be more plural in their approach, and they would learn to respect other cultures and other people's lifestyle and food habits and dress code and language. No? Yeah, it's very important.
And there is another question: how to stop sexual violence against women and children in India and Pakistan, Bangladesh?
Yeah, I think that is a patriarchal control that we have of sexuality, fertility, and labor. It gets manifested. The overall subordination of children and women in the family, children are subordinate because they don't have voice. What their parents say they have to do. We don't even give the education. Like when I was a full timer of women's organization, women with 5-figure, those days I'm talking of 1980, the 5-figure salary would come completely wounded. Officer in Reserve Bank or manager in some firm, because they were never taught any self-defense. They were never taught. They were only told कि एक दफा आपकी डोली गई. And I think this is true in all three countries. When a woman is married, you are a husband's property. He can use you, he can abuse you, he can kill you also. So I think that culture also needs to be challenged, because that is why saving the constitution is more important. What constitution has granted, we need to really protect, safeguard those guarantees that we have. And in the name of custom, tradition, any kind of violent behavior. I think the justice gave us, honorable justice gave us a very good example of Nagaho women not being allowed to be part of their council, and how he gave a judge. So I think those kind of incremental successes, if we can have wherever we are. Okay, so those are also very important, and that is why what I think my grandmother said: don't perpetrate injustice, but don't tolerate injustice. That too, we have to stick out our neck wherever it happens. We have to give our opinion. We have to say that this is not done, through our writing, through our speeches, and through our direct intervention. That's what we have done in the women's movement.
Sahibzada sir, are you there?
He's there. Everything is muted. He's there.
Okay.
Please unmute yourself.
Yeah. Sir, there is a question regarding what is the difference between liberty and freedom in the Pakistan context, you can say. Means he has written, I think, in 3 countries. What is the difference between liberty and freedom?
Thank you. As I shared, that there is a huge difference between freedom and liberty. Ma'am Patel already shared about certain views about the Foucault and then the Jungian approach. I will refer to the Wolfram liberty approach toward this, that it is to that whenever we are going to interfere the actions of someone else, are those actions which is considered as the right of that person, and we are going to interfere that one, that interference may be considered as disturb the liberty of an individual. Later on, when we are going to discuss certain other parameters of the same freedom, free, unfree, and then we have locked freedom and freedom, then we will have to approach that negative freedom and positive freedom. So in simple words, we can say that whenever there is a permissibility or lack of interference with the actions that one has to right to do, and that is referring to a moralized account, deals with the negative freedom, and that should be freed as with the measures of their status of the persons when certain acts that are forbidden to them. So whether or not that permissions or permissibility of those acts should be generate a corresponding freedom or not. Thank you.
Yeah, if I give some examples, like liberty is looking through the framework of constitution, limitation of government power, like right to vote is our liberty, or right to movement is a liberty. But freedom is a broader concept, choosing one court says choosing one's whom to marriage we can consider it as a freedom. And liberty, as sir said, it also comes under the framework of positive freedom. I think we are done with all the questions. Yeah. Thank you to all the panelists today for such an enlightening, motivating session. And thank you, Arijit sir, for coming up this bold idea. And in future, I will also like you to involve more other countries that our India is sharing border with, like Bhutan, Nepal, Sri Lanka, Maldives, China, Afghanistan. So it will be more open when we can discuss in an informal setting. and have a very
Last
good
but not
quality
least,
session.
I would like to convey my thanks to all audience and a special thanks goes to Arijit Chakrabory for his invitation to me
Yeah.
to attend this seminar. Thank you,
Yeah, yeah.
everybody.
Thank you, Professor Asifullah. We have learned a lot from you. And you were so erudite, and the way you encapsulated the whole 17, 80 years of history, that was really marvelous in such a short time. And Dr. Saibzada's conceptual clarity and bringing back all the memories of the 70s discourses, no, post-structuralist and yeah, that was very important.
I would like to invite Dr. Rahul Mishra to say a few words and conclude the session.
Actually, Dr. Rahul Mishra have some another lecture. That's why she left the program. So, on behalf of the Rahul Mishra, I will deliver the vote of thanks. Actually, uh, we are very happy to get this type of dignitaries in our platform. They are very they have very much enlightening lecture, and actually we are organizing this type of seminars to sensitize the scholars' mind and readers' minds. That's the seminars puts its impact on the scholars' manuscript, and improve their um, angle of views and um, other actually scholars actually have some issues to explain the things. They know the issues, but they don't know how to explain and how to look into the matter. This type of seminar puts its impact for to their angle of view and the capacity capacity to explain the crucial things, scholarly things. That's why we organize this type of seminars and webinars. And thank you for all. It's, especially Subhasis Talapatra sir, Vibhuti madam, Sahibzada Aurangzeb sir, and our Shahibul Rahman sir, and of course Sohini. She is a wonderful uh, moderate moderator. Thank you, thank you to all. After the all things, the participants. We are
Yes,
happy
we
to.
being audience, we
Massive,
also want a vote of thanks, of course. Yeah.
Yeah.
massive participation, massive participation.
Thank you, ma'am. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, madam.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a nice evening.
Same to you. Happy Independence Day once again. Yeah.
Thank you.
Same to you, ma'am. Happy Independence Day.
Excuse me, sir.
Thank you.
I just want to ask that do we have a participation certificates?
Yes, yes, we will send it to you.
Okay, thank you.